Chosen one, before you listen any further, pause for a moment and reflect. There were moments in your life that should not have ended the way they did. Situations where logic says you should not be here right now. Moments where the outcome could have gone another way, and yet, somehow, it didn't. You survived what should have broken you. You walked away from what should have ended you, and if you are honest with yourself, you have looked back at least once and thought, that should have been the end. This is not fear rising in you. This is recognition. This is your spirit responding to the truth. Because survival like yours is not random, and it is not coincidence. You are not still here because of luck, timing, or chance. You are here because something intervened. Something unseen stepped into your timeline and said, not yet. This message is not for everyone. Many will hear these words and feel nothing. They will dismiss them as imagination or exaggeration. But choose one. If your chest feels heavy right now, if your mind is replaying moments you rarely talk about, it is because this message is reaching the part of you that already knows. Only those who have walked through danger and come out untouched recognize the weight of this truth. Only those who have been preserved understand what it means to be spared. You were not scrolling randomly. You did not find this message by accident. Timing matters in the spiritual realm, and this reached you exactly when it was meant to. Heaven has been speaking to you for years through quiet warnings, sudden delays, unexplainable protection, dreams you couldn't forget, and moments where something told you to stop, turn around, or wait. At the time, you may not have called it divine. You may have brushed it off as instinct or coincidence. But now, clarity is forming. Chosen one, your timeline was interrupted because your assignment is not finished. There were points where the path you were on should have ended, but it didn't. Not because you were strong enough, not because you were smart enough, but because you were needed. God does not interrupt timelines without purpose. Heaven does not preserve lives that carry no assignment. When something repeatedly steps in to protect you, redirect you, and delay endings, it is because your existence carries weight beyond yourself. This is not a message of fear or drama. This is a revelation. Understanding that death was delayed in your life does not mean you were meant to die. It means you were meant to live for something specific, something ahead of you, something that required you to still be breathing, still standing, still becoming. So, as you listen, do not shrink back. Do not dismiss what resonates. You are not here by accident. You are here because heaven said no to endings that tried to claim you. And today, you are about to understand why. Chosen one, to understand your story, we must first bring clarity to what it truly means when we say your death was delayed. This is not a message rooted in fear, darkness, or inevitability. It is not saying you were destined to die and narrowly escape by chance. That belief misunderstands the nature of divine authority. A delayed death does not mean the end was scheduled and postponed. It means heaven stepped into a moment that was moving toward destruction and redirected it toward purpose. In the spiritual realm, time does not function the way it does in the natural world. God is not bound by clocks, calendars, or probability. He sees outcomes before choices are made and endings before journeys begin. So when danger approached your life, it did not catch heaven by surprise. What looked sudden to you was already visible in the unseen. And when that moment arrived, God intervened with authority and said, "Not yet. This life is still needed." This is what separates divine intervention from close calls or near misses. A close call happens when your actions, awareness, or quick thinking keep you safe. A near miss happens when timing or positioning prevents harm. These things happen to many people. But divine intervention is different. Divine intervention happens when there is no logical explanation, when instinct does not explain it, when skill does not explain it, when probability does not explain it. Something unseen steps in and alters the outcome without announcing itself. Often, Divine intervention does not feel miraculous in the moment. It feels ordinary, a delay, a sudden change of plans, a door that would not open, a voice in your spirit telling you not to go, a distraction that keeps you from being in the wrong place at the wrong time, a pause you did not understand until later. These are not random inconveniences. These are the fingerprints of God on your timeline. When death is delayed, it is because God is preserving what He planted. Purpose attracts protection. Assignment requires preservation. When God places something inside a person that will impact others, He becomes personally involved in guarding that life. Darkness may attempt to interrupt the story early, but it does not have the authority to end what God authored before its time. Chosen ones experience divine intervention more frequently because their lives are not ordinary. Their survival affects more than themselves. Their presence carries weight in the unseen realm. This is why many chosen ones can look back and identify moments that still do not make sense. Situations that collapsed around them while they remained intact. Times when others were harmed, but they were spared. Moments when logic says they should not have walked away. These were not accidents. They were checkpoints. Heaven stepped in and declared, "This life is still required." Understanding this shifts the question from, "Why did this almost happen to me?" to "Why was I preserved?" And that question leads not to fear, but to purpose. Chosen one of the most misunderstood truths about destiny is this: opposition often arrives before purpose is revealed. Many people assume that darkness only reacts once calling becomes visible, but in reality, the enemy targets destiny long before the individual understands who they are. This is why so many chosen ones experienced pressure, danger, or disruption early in life, sometimes before they had language, awareness, or strength to make sense of it. The enemy does not need you to know your assignment in order to fear the outcome of it. Your spirit carried something before your mind could name it. Even in childhood, your presence registered in the unseen realm. And because destiny disrupts darkness, darkness attempts to interrupt you early. This is why pain, instability, or danger showed up in seasons that should have been simple, protected, and safe. For some chosen ones, this targeting appeared in childhood. Not always through dramatic events, but through environments that felt unsafe, unpredictable, or emotionally heavy. You may have grown up around instability, neglect, sickness, or confusion. While others seemed protected by normalcy, you were forced to mature early. That was not because God abandoned you. It was because darkness recognized something valuable was forming and tried to fracture it before it fully emerged. For others, the pressure intensified during teenage years. This is often when identity begins to solidify, and the enemy responds with distraction, reckless situations, dangerous influences, and moments where one wrong decision could have altered everything. Risks seemed to surround you more than others. Temptation appeared stronger. Chaos felt closer. This was not a coincidence. Teenage years are a common battlefield because destiny starts pushing toward awareness, and darkness reacts quickly. Some felt the weight in early adulthood. Emotional collapse, overwhelming pressure, dangerous relationships, sudden illness, or seasons where everything seemed to hit at once. Life moved fast and hard. You may have felt like you were surviving instead of living. Again, this was not random. Early adulthood is often when chosen ones begin awakening spiritually, even if they are not consciously seeking God. Movement toward purpose always triggers resistance. But here is the truth that changes everything. Every time darkness reached for you, God stepped in first. The enemy tried to end the story early, but heaven refused permission. You were shielded not because you were perfect, but because you were purposeful. God does not allow what He authored to be erased before its appointed time. This is why many chosen ones notice a pattern when they look back. Danger appeared early. Pressure arrived sooner than expected, but so did protection. Something always interrupted the ending. Something always pulls you back from the edge. That was not resilience alone. That was divine authority denying access. Darkness attacked early because your destiny is not small. Ordinary lives are often left alone, but a life that will awaken others, break cycles, and carry light into dark places is watched closely. And yet, despite every attempt, you are still here. That alone is evidence that heaven has always been involved in your story. Chosen one. The first delay in your life is often the most overlooked, yet it is one of the most important. This was the moment when heaven stepped in quietly, long before you understood what was happening, and preserved your life without announcement. It was not dramatic. It did not come with clarity or revelation. In many cases, you barely remember it at all. But spiritually, this moment carried immense weight. For many chosen ones, this first delay came through illness. A sickness that lingered longer than expected. A diagnosis that did not fully make sense. A season when the body weakened beyond reason, yet recovery arrived without explanation. At the time, you may have been too young to understand the seriousness of it, or too unaware to recognize what was happening in the unseen realm. But heaven saw it clearly. What should have progressed stopped. What should have worsened reversed. Strength returned when logic said it should not. That was not a coincidence. That was protection. For others, the first delay appeared through an accident, something sudden and unexpected. A fall, a crash, a near disaster where seconds mattered. Time may have seemed to slow down. You walked away shaken, bruised, or confused, but alive. Later, others may have called it luck. But luck was not present. Authority was. Heaven intervened in a moment where the outcome should have been different and altered it quietly. Some chosen ones experienced this first delay through unsafe environments. Growing up surrounded by instability, chaos, or emotional danger, you were exposed to things you should not have been exposed to at such a young age. And yet, something restrained the damage. You observed more than you absorbed. You passed through without becoming what surrounded you. That restraint was not self-made. It was divine containment. God allowed you to survive the environment without being claimed by it. For others, the first delay was internal. Emotional collapse, deep confusion, numbness, or despair that arrived far too early. Moments when giving up felt easier than continuing. Yet somehow, something inside you held on. Not because you were strong, but because you were guarded. Heaven does not always intervene by changing circumstances. Sometimes it intervenes by stabilizing the soul just enough to survive the storm. This first delay is often minimized later in life. You may look back and think, it wasn't that serious, or others had it worse. But that is because protection did its job so well that danger never reached its full expression. When God intervenes early, He often removes the memory of fear, along with the threat itself. The trauma does not fully attach. The damage does not fully root. Angelic intervention is rarely loud. There are no thunderclaps or visible signs. Angels redirect without noise. They block paths without confrontation. They whisper caution when danger approaches. This is why the memory feels blurred. But make no mistake, chosen one, that season was not random hardship. It was the first moment heaven said, this life is not finished. And from that moment forward, your story was preserved on purpose. The second delay was different from the first. The first delay preserved your life quietly, often before you were aware. But the second delay changed your direction. This was the moment when your life could have continued down a path that looked logical, promising, or even exciting, yet heaven stepped in and said, not this way. This delay did not always feel like protection at the time. Often, it felt like a loss. This second delay usually came through a near miss. Not necessarily something that would have ended your life immediately, but something that would have ended your destiny. A relationship that almost went too far. A decision that would have locked you into the wrong future. An opportunity that looked right on the surface but carried hidden consequences. Emotionally, it made sense. Rationally, it felt safe. Spiritually, it was misaligned. At the last moment, something shifted. A door closed without explanation. The relationship ended suddenly. The opportunity disappeared. Plans collapsed just as you were ready to move forward. You may have felt frustrated, confused, or even angry. You questioned why things didn't work out when you were trying so hard. But now, looking back, you can see the truth clearly. If that path had continued, you would not be who you are today. This is how the second delay operates. God does not only block danger, He redirects desire. He interrupts momentum. He slows you down when speed would have carried you into loss. You were moving confidently towards something, and suddenly the energy shifted. The excitement drained. The clarity faded. What once felt certain no longer did. That was not confusion. That was course correction. Many chosen ones experience this delay in early adulthood, when decisions begin shaping long-term direction. Career choices, relationship commitments, identity formation, lifestyle paths. In this season, the enemy often shifts strategy. If it cannot end your life, it tries to misalign your future. But God intervenes again, firmly and intentionally, to preserve alignment. Often, this delay was preceded by a warning. A quiet unease you couldn't explain. A hesitation in your spirit. A recurring thought that something felt off. Some received dreams, symbolic warnings, or internal resistance they ignored at first. God speaks before He intervenes. He warns before He redirects. You may not have understood the language yet, but your spirit was alerted. After this delay, something changed within you. You became more discerning. You hesitated where you once rushed. You questioned what you once accepted. This was not fear. This was wisdom formed through intervention. God slowed you down so you could mature spiritually. This was often the season where prayer became personal, not religious. Honest, not scripted. Though it hurt in the moment, this delay repositioned you. It saved you from becoming successful in the wrong direction. It preserved the version of you that could still respond to purpose. Heaven stepped in again and said, "This life is still needed, but not on this path." Chosen one. The third delay was unlike the first two. The first delay happened quietly. The second delay redirected your path, but the third delay reached you deeply. You felt this one. It left an emotional imprint. It lingered in your thoughts and changed the way you understood life, danger, and survival. This was the moment when staying alive stopped feeling accidental and started feeling intentional. This delay often came during a season when you were already vulnerable. You were emotionally stretched, mentally exhausted, or spiritually searching. You were carrying weight, even if you couldn't explain why. Then the moment arrived. A situation that came too close. A collapse that felt final. A breaking point where everything could have ended. And when it passed, when you realized you were still standing, the feeling was different. It wasn't just relief. It was a revelation. You may have cried afterward without knowing why. You may have sat in silence replaying the moment over and over, not in fear, but in disbelief. Gratitude mixed with confusion, peace mixed with trembling, calm mixed with awe. That emotional response was not weakness. It was recognition. Your spirit understood that something unseen had intervened again. Unlike the earlier delays, this one was often followed by heightened spiritual awareness. You felt God closer than before. Not necessarily in dramatic ways, but undeniable ones. Some experienced vivid dreams filled with light, warnings, reassurance, or clarity. Others felt a sudden hunger for spiritual truth, a desire to pray, to understand, to seek. That hunger was not curiosity. It was an awakening. After this delay, your discernment sharpened quickly. You knew when something was off. You sensed danger before it appeared. You recognized when to walk away without needing proof. This awareness did not come from fear. It came from protection being revealed. Before this moment, you may have sensed things vaguely. After it, you knew. This is often the point where chosen ones stop seeing life as random. Patterns become visible. Timing starts making sense. You notice how situations collapse just before harming you. How help arrives without explanation. How you are guided away from danger without effort. This realization does not make you anxious. It makes you reverent. The third delay is also where purpose begins pressing in. You may not know what your assignment is yet, but you know it exists. Superficial things lose meaning. Deeper questions arise. You begin to sense that your life matters beyond survival. The enemy intended this moment to break you emotionally or end you completely. God turned it into an awakening point. After this delay, many chosen ones say, "I was never the same." And they are right. This moment became a dividing line between unconscious living and awareness. Heaven allowed you to feel this intervention so you would finally understand it. The third delay was not just preservation, it was a revelation. Chosen one, after the third delay, something permanent shifted around your life. Protection did not just visit you in moments of crisis, it settled on you. Your life entered a different spiritual jurisdiction. This is why you sense things differently now. You are no longer moving through life uncovered. Heaven has placed a guard over your steps, and the signs of that protection appear quietly, consistently, and unmistakably. One of the clearest signs is heightened intuition. You know things before they happen. You sense danger before it appears. You feel unease without logical explanation, and later discover there was something you were meant to avoid. This is not anxiety. It is discernment. Your spirit now receives information faster than your mind can process it. When protection is active, intuition becomes an internal warning system. You don't need evidence. You don't need validation. You simply know, and when you listen, you are preserved. Another sign is how often you escape danger repeatedly. Not once, not twice, but consistently. Situations dissolve before becoming harmful. Problems miss you narrowly. You arrive late and avoid an incident. You leave early and miss chaos. You change plans and unknowingly step out of harm's path. This repetition is not a coincidence. It is a pattern, and patterns reveal design. Heaven has learned how to move you without alarming you. You may also notice doors closing suddenly, opportunities vanish, relationships end abruptly, paths that once seemed promising collapse overnight. At first, this feels frustrating or disappointing, but clarity follows. You see what those doors would have cost you. Protection does not always feel gentle. Sometimes it feels firm. God closes doors not because you are wrong, but because what lies behind them is unsafe for your assignment. Another unmistakable sign is a sense of calm during chaos. Situations that shake others do not shake you the same way. Pressure builds, but panic does not take root. This calm is not numbness. It is covering. When you are protected, fear loses authority. You trust outcomes before they arrive. You remain steady while others spiral. You may also sense angelic presence without seeing it. A sudden peace, a grounding stillness, a feeling of being watched over rather than watched. Protection carries presence. You are not walking alone, even when no one is beside you. Heaven assigned guardians, because your life requires oversight beyond the natural. Finally, you notice internal redirection. You lose appetite for things that once attracted you. Certain environments repel you. Temptations lose their pull. God does not only block danger externally, He removes desire for it internally. This is advanced protection. Chosen one, these signs are not temporary. They are evidence that preservation has become permanent. Chosen one. As we close this message, let one truth settle deeply into your spirit. Your survival was not luck. It was not a chance. It was not random timing or coincidence. You are still here because heaven decided you are still needed. Every delay, every interruption, every moment that spared you was intentional. God does nothing accidentally, especially when it comes to preserving a life He authored with purpose. You were not preserved because you were perfect. You were preserved because you were appointed. Heaven does not guard empty vessels. It guards assignments. It guards destinies. It guards futures that carry weight beyond the present moment. When death was delayed in your life, it was not fear that stepped in. It was authority. God stepped into your timeline and declared, "This story does not end here." There were moments when logic said you should have been lost. Moments when the outcome looked sealed. Moments when others counted you out. And yet, something always interrupted the ending. That interruption was not a weakness. It was protection. The same hand that formed you refused to release you before your time. The same voice that called you into being stood between you and destruction and said, "No." It's Avenger. God kept you alive because your assignment is not finished. Needed in ways you may not fully understand yet. Needed in places you may not have reached yet. Needed by people you may not have met yet. Heaven does not rush what it intends to use. It preserves it until the appointed time. Your life carries a purpose that extends beyond survival. Your breath carries intention. Your presence carries influence, even when unseen, unnoticed, or uncelebrated. You may feel like your impact is quiet or hidden, but heaven measures differently. God measures faithfulness, not visibility. Some of the most powerful assignments unfold without applause. Obscurity is often protection, not insignificance. God keeps certain vessels grounded until their presence is required. Your survival is connected to others. Even if you never see the full reach of it, the delays you experienced were not setbacks. They were safeguards. Heaven slowed your timeline so your purpose could be carried correctly. You were not spared to live cautiously. You were spared to live intentionally. You were not kept alive to question your worth. You were kept alive because heaven already settled it. So walk forward with assurance, not fear, with humility, not doubt. You do not need to prove why you survived. You only need to live aligned with the truth that you did. Chosen one, you were not meant to be gone. You were preserved on purpose. And your story is not over yet.